Hello everyone, Tom Morley here with another tutorial. This one's going to be on the GMIC plugin for GIMP. You can do a lot of really cool things with this plugin, and I'm going to do a short series on how to create some cool effects using different aspects of this plugin. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be how to change Pepper the cat. This is Pepper the cat, which is my good friend Rocco Saya's cat. He took a photograph of the cat for Halloween, and we're going to change this normal picture to a more sinister looking picture, something more appropriate for Halloween. So when we're done, it will look more like this. So it'll look sort of like a backlit version of the original picture with additional contrast and more cartoon look to it. But this is what we're going for. This is what we'll end up with after we're done using the GMIC plugin. So let's get started. Let's open this with GIMP. And the very first thing we want to do is we need to add quite a bit of contrast to all the hairs on the cat. So we'll click on filters up here, go down to GMIC, and we want to go to the details section. Expand the details section, go down to the freaky details section, and you'll see that it's going to add some contrast to the fur. So let's click OK, and you see we've added some contrast, but that's not quite enough. Let's click filters and apply that GMIC filter again. There you go. Now we've got this high contrast for all of the different pieces of fur and whiskers for the cat. So now that we have that, the next thing we want to do is kind of smooth out all of these hairs now. So let's click filters, GMIC again. Let's close the details section and go to the artistic section, and we want to click on the dream smoothing. Now by default, the dream smoothing portion of the GMIC plugin is set to one thread for parallel processing. So if you have more than one thread, I highly suggest that you set that to however many threads you have. In my case, I have 8 threads, and I'll click OK. This particular filter takes quite a while for it to process. The bigger your picture, the longer it's going to take for this filter to process. This picture is 2880 by 1920. So basically the effect that we're using on this picture will only work for pictures roughly the same size, because if you use a smaller picture with all the default settings, then you're going to get a different look. So make sure the pictures that you start with are somewhere in the range of 2880 by 1920. Okay, so this finished, and you can see what it's done is basically broadened all of the pieces of fur and smoothed them out a little bit. But this isn't quite where I want it to be yet. I need to apply the filter one more time, so click filters, repeat that filter, and I'll probably speed this section up so that you don't have to wait for it to process. Okay, it finished processing, and this looks great. This is exactly what I'm looking for, is almost like a brush stroke effect. But one of the things that happened now is that I've basically washed out my picture. I need to create some contrast, and I want my darks to be really dark and my whites to be very bright. So let's click on colors, click on brightness and contrast, and let's turn the brightness down a little bit so that we can get it a little bit darker. And now I'm going to increase the contrast because I really want these edges black and dark and the whites really bright. So you can just adjust these to basically whatever looks good for you. I've got minus 57 and positive 47 here. Click OK. I also want to make the colors kind of pop out of the picture a little bit, kind of be a little bit more pronounced. So we're going to increase the saturation by clicking on color, click on hue and saturation, and we're going to boost the saturation up a little bit. And you can see here in the eyes what that does for it. So let me bring that back down to 50%, and you see how that kind of looks dull, and when you bring it up here you're getting more of a, almost like this, there's some type of glowing light involved behind the eyes and some of the fur here, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to click OK. So that looks pretty good for me. Now there's another thing that I want to do that includes another filter in GMIC, but before I do that we're going to create a copy of this picture because I want to work on a copy. So make sure that you're in the layers section of GIMP, right click on your picture and duplicate that layer so that you create another layer. Make sure your top layer here is highlighted because that's the one we want to work on. And what I want to do now is I want to apply another GMIC filter, so we'll go in there. It's again in the artistic section, but more towards the bottom of that. And here it is, the Rodulus filter right here. We're going to click on that. Now this filter you've probably seen used in other pictures, basically making lions look like their fur is glowing and stuff. We're not going to use it for creating white glow, but more of a subtraction or a dark glow. So let's change some of these default settings here. The amplitude, let's change that to about a 7. This thickness, let's bring that up to about 16 or 17. The sharpness, we can bring that down a little bit to about 180, in between 180 and 190 maybe. Oh, I guess there we go. 192 is fine. Orientations, let's bring that up to about 15, 14, 15, there you go. And this is where we're going to change our glow from a glow to more of a dark subtraction. Hit the color mode here and turn that to darker. And you'll see basically it created these dark veins in our picture. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have a duplicate is because this looks really cool, and I'm going to click OK to apply that, but I like the detail of the original modifications that we made where there was a lot of detail in the fur itself. So I kind of want to marry the two together. So as soon as this filter is done processing, then we will modify the layers just a bit. Okay, so it finished up and we have these dark veins basically in our picture now. It's exactly what I was looking for. But again, I want the blacks to be super dark and the whites to be somewhat bright as well. So we're going to adjust the brightness and contrast again. Click on colors of our top picture here. Brightness and contrast, and we're going to bump the contrast just a little bit so that we get this cutout mask type look in here. And actually I think I'm going to leave the brightness setting right where it is and click OK. And I'm going to see if boosting the saturation a little bit might help a little bit. Let's take a look. And yeah, that looks pretty neat. I'm going to click OK. So I boosted up the saturation just a little bit. Now I've got this modified picture here, and I also have the original lower version of the picture. And I want to marry these two up, but not with the normal mode, but I want to click on the setting here and change that to multiply. So I want to multiply these together to get the effect that I'm looking for. And I want the opacity to be somewhat around, I would say, 50%. So I like it somewhere around 50 to 55. for the setting for the opacity. So multiply an opacity of somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 55, and that's it. That's the final picture. So let's again take a look at the original picture, which is, this is the original picture right here, and here's the modified version. So much more, in my opinion, Halloween looking, or a nice backdrop for Halloween. So that's one way to use the GMIC filters to create a pretty cool effect. I'm going to be creating quite a few of the GMIC filter tutorials, just real quick ones, so that you can see some of the cool things that can be created using the GMIC filter in GIMP. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully you learned something. I hope you liked these videos. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, as well as like the videos. Okay, so I'll see you in the next one.